Welcome back. Making a profit and changing the world for the better, not mutually exclusive for one company. Brava Investments focuses on companies that adhere to one condition: they must financially benefit women. Joining us right now is Brava Investments CEO Nathalie Molina Nino. Nathalie, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Tell us about the structure of your business.
Absolutely. So we're inspired by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. The idea is we're focused on scale, and we're focused on companies that yield results for investors first and foremost. But then second to that, we're focused on companies that can prove that they're economically benefiting women in some way.
How would they benefit women differently than anything else? I mean, like when people say, oh, go speak at a women's conference, I always say, well, you know what? It's sort of just marketing. Women want the same thing as men, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we know is that there are certain examples, right? So we know it's not just pay gap, right? It's things like venture capital. Women get 4.7% of all venture capital. We definitely have more than 4.7% of all good ideas. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. And so the idea is we already have a number of funds that focus on investing in women-led businesses. I feel like that's an amazing effort. And what this is another tool in the toolbox. I'm concerned with the idea of businesses. I'll give you an example. A business that sees themselves as supply chain efficiency. They go into factories, they make them more efficient. They don't see themselves as being impact-oriented. They don't even see themselves as being gender-oriented. But what they end up doing is they end up being more profitable and making the lives of everybody in those factories better. I asked them what percentage of their workforce is women, and they say over 90%. That's a company that is male-founded, but is clearly benefiting the lives of women. And so I would invest in a company like that.
So what are the impediments to women gaining opportunity? You talked about venture capital, women only getting 4.7%. What are some of the structural impediments that you're trying to overcome?
You know, I think it's also historical, right? Women are coming from not having been in the workplace, you know, before the last century, and I think that there's the shift of just women entering the workforce. And now at this point, you know, women are more than 50% of doctors. Women are very present. They're getting more degrees than men in terms of college. So we no longer have a pipeline issue. And so I think structural issues, we have a pool of people that are ready to be fully participating in the workplace. And what we have is a system that isn't necessarily hiring them at the rate that we should, promoting them at the rate that we should, and especially in the case of all women, not just women CEOs, we're not paying them at the rates that we should.
So are most of your investments in companies that are run by women, or can you find, it seems like you could find a reason or an excuse to invest in almost any company if there are women employed there?
I love that you say that because, in fact, yeah, one of the questions has been, are you narrowing the pool? So, for example, if women are only getting 4.7% of all venture capital and I'm going to focus only on women-led businesses, then aren't I limiting my pool of possibilities? And that's the whole premise, is I'm not. I'm focusing on investments that are founded by men or women, provided that they can prove that they're benefiting women in a measurable way. I'm talking not abstractly. I'm talking about, are you putting more money in the pockets of women? If the answer is yes, then we should talk.
What kinds of things do you believe benefit women specifically?
I think both investing in women-owned companies, I think putting more money in the pockets of women in terms of what they get paid. I'll give you another great example that's one of my favorites. We've not gone public because we haven't closed any deals on investments yet. We just launched last month. But a company that I am excited to just know exists is a company that's developing a drug for children with autism. Autism disproportionately affects little boys, and so you wouldn't necessarily think that would fall squarely in my thesis. And yet if you look at the economic impact of autism, I learned recently that over 90% of marriages involving a child with autism result in divorce. Right. It's insane. Wow. And so think about the economic impact. We know that when divorce happens, women take on the majority of the economic burden. So this is a company that doesn't have to do anything special for women. They simply have to exist. If their drug hits the market, and if their drug is successful, then they're going to be putting more money in the pockets of mothers of children with autism all over the world. And so that's probably my best example.
How much money are you managing?
Well, our hope is to start with family offices in the beginning, and then our hope is eventually to be able to position ourselves to be the solution for big institutional investors. So we're talking about pension funds, we're talking about endowments. I got to know, for example, the folks at Columbia. They're sitting on $10 billion of an endowment, and they're getting tension to divest from toxic investments, right? They want to be able to have a large-scale investment pool like ours to be able to say, okay, we're putting our money someplace that is going to be non-toxic and that we can prove is actually benefiting the world.
Is there any evidence that investing in women businesses where women own them and are largely the employees has better performance than those of men?
The SBA just released a study actually a couple of weeks ago that says that generally when it comes to both diverse fund managers and diverse actual investments, they have I think, like a 10 or 15-year track record showing that those investments tend to perform better. My thesis is that the same is true when it comes to focusing on women.
Natalie, good to see you.
Yeah,
Thanks so
likewise.
much. Natalie, Molina, Nino there. We'll be